Our next speaker is Dr. Angela Straathof. She is the Director of Research and Knowledge Transfer at the Ontario Soil and Crop Improvement Association, a farmer member organization delivering agricultural programming. She oversees delivery of soil and crops on-farm research initiatives, connecting farmers with researchers and resources to test best management practices and support knowledge mobilization to those findings amongst the industry. Angie has a PhD in soil biology and chemistry from Wageningen University in the Netherlands, which is actually where I met Angie originally as well, and acted as the program director for soil and crop before taking on her current role on the formation of Soil and Crops Department of Research and Knowledge Transfer in 2023. So thanks, Angie. Come on up. I'm actually going to scoot over here due to a shoulder injury. Bear with me. Thanks. Thanks. I was actually just saying to Jen this morning, I feel like a bit of a livestock sector interloper in this room. I am a soil scientist, and soil and crops mandate is obviously right in our organizational name. But it's really important to get into rooms like this. And 2 years ago, I walked into a room. Admittedly, I slipped in kind of late, and I took the last available seat next to a guy named Mike Morris. And I'd never heard of Livestock Research Innovation Corporation before that moment, but Soil and Crops been working with them ever since. So get into rooms like this, form your teams, and go from there. It's great to be here. Thank you. I'm going to be talking about a bit of a case study for you all, the Living Lab Ontario Research Program. Within the Department of Research and Knowledge Transfer, this is kind of one of our flagship research programs. It's largest in breadth and scale, but it's delivered alongside other initiatives we have funded by the province or industry, including the on-farm applied research and monitoring program, grassroots research grants that we offer exclusively to our local and regional associations, but also OAPRI grants underway, as Adam mentioned this morning. So yeah, lots to keep us on our toes, and Living Lab really complements all of those initiatives. So I'll just go through its kind of an overview today, and you can start to think about how its innovative model of co-development lends to getting research into practice. So what is a living lab? Specifically to the living lab we're delivering in Ontario, and as it's been conceptualized and funded by Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada under the Ag Climate Solutions funding framework, a living lab is an innovation project implemented on farm, supported by research. And it's a way of developing farm innovations on beneficial management practices, best management practices, or innovative management practices, depending on the flavor of the day who you're talking to. But essentially, it's a way to move the industry forward through iterative testing of management styles. It's a team sport. This is our team. These are our team players. It's a really complex ecosystem of partners, but we're really grateful for the buy-in and the support and the collaboration we've been able to draw on from all these folks. It's been said, many times already this morning, getting research into practice. It's about trust. It's about people. It's about relationships, on a slide up like this, these are just logos, but it's really about the people who come to the table from these organizations, bring their wisdom, bring their experience and their ideas, and their connections to the farmers that we're integrating into the program. So it's really critical that we have everyone feeling engaged, feeling heard, and feeling like they're able to contribute their best selves to the program. So it's a really gratifying group of organizations we get to work with on Living Lab Ontario. Just kind of zooming out for a moment, like what is it most fundamentally trying to achieve?
As it's funded by the Agricultural Climate Solutions Framework, obviously there is a mandate to mitigate agriculture's impact on climate change and, you know, be part of the solution. So we're really looking at these practices listed here that are hypothesized to have potential to sequester carbon, and most specifically to sequester carbon into agricultural soils. So a lot of these are, you know, they're not necessarily new in concept, but we want to drive the adoption rates of them and, you know, kind of tweak their implementation strategies and center those implementation strategies so they're more accessible to a broader swath of farmers. And then second to that, second to the carbon sequestration piece is the priority to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So this is looking at more nitrous oxide and methane emissions in addition to carbon dioxide. So we'll be looking at these specific practices and directly measuring their ability to reduce the levels of those potent greenhouse gases that are being emitted from agricultural systems. Now, in addition to both of these main priorities, we're interested in looking at what we call the co-benefits of these management practices. So, you know, if it does turn out that they're, you know, measurably impactful for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and sequestering soil carbon, are they also able to provide biodiversity benefits, economic benefits? Do they enhance the social well-being or social fabric of the farming community? So all of those elements are kind of taken into consideration in peripheral or like side quest research projects that supplement these main priorities. This is just a kind of zoomed in snapshot of the sites. It is admittedly not the most current version of our sites because they do stretch actually all the way from Thunder Bay to the Temiskaming region as well. But we've really prioritized capturing regional diversity, commodity diversity, and kind of hand in hand with that comes along management style diversity, soil type spectrum. So the cooperators really critical to the success of the program, and important to emphasize that these research trials are all conducted on working farms operated by real farmers who have very generously and graciously opened their farm gates to the researchers engaged on the project. So we did a bit of a multi-pronged approach in selecting these sites and identifying the farmer cooperators. It was a bit of an open call, but again, coming back to the importance of the team contributions, we really relied on the partner organizations in the network of the program to call in cooperators, farmers that they thought would be successful hosts to these research trials. And they were invited to participate in a survey along with an open call for participants in the survey that would help us identify strong candidate sites. The geography and physical attributes of the site were really just one piece of the puzzle. We, also wanted some assurances that the farmer cooperators would be good ambassadors for the program. So again, do they, have comfort level, not only working with the researchers who they'll be welcoming to the farm, but sharing their story to other farmers and eventually the general public as well. So there's over 40 farmer cooperators in the program registered now. Obviously, with that number of farms, they're not a monolith. There's a real spectrum in their capacity for engagement, their interest level in engagement, their interest level in contributing to knowledge transfer. But we do really want to give them all the opportunity to have their story told and share their the perspective of their experience participating in the research program. This is kind of the conceptual model of how Live in Lab as a national program, centers the co-development, and I'll get a bit more into what that refers to, but so it centers the co-development process of the innovation cycle. So the planning phase for Living Lab Ontario, again, was done very collaboratively. Ontario Soil and Crop Improvement Association had actually been engaged in delivering the pilot phase of Living Lab, which had a focus on water quality, beneficial outcomes, and a more constrained geography in southwestern Ontario. So we relied on lessons learned from that, but really opened up the number of partnerships and the types of practices we'd be looking at in Living Lab continuing through to 2028. So at the moment, we're in this, kind of critical middle phase of co-development, with the end goal being obviously widespread adoption of these practices once we've been able to test them. So I'll zoom in on this cycle for a moment. So co-development is a process by which we identify needs and outcomes with the partners in the program and the farmer cooperators in the program to generate and share ideas, not only about how things are going, but where we want them to go. And then we implement that into the experiments and the data collection and the testing of those practices on their farm. And that leads us into this iterative cycle where we evaluate what's coming back from the testing phase. So I would say, and I can speak to our ability to compare how we conduct Living Lab and where we're able to kind of tweak and modify and revise the processes as we go through it. It is different, from a more fundamental research program where you really want constrained and consistent replicability and year-over-year comparisons. Here we're leaning into, more the opportunity to use this as a proof of concept model, as a demonstration model, and say like, okay, if we don't have that scientific robustness, because we might be using this co-development to kind of tweak elements of the program, we're still getting the KTT benefit and the opportunity to like bring those farmer voices to the table and understand and center what works for them. So it is innovative in that regard for sure. Oh, no. Okay. So the core principles are really threefold, and again lends to this teamwork and this team sport mentality. We're centering the user, and the user being the farmer that's participating in the program. Hosting the trials is obviously the most fundamental user, but the end user being like the broader spectrum of farmers across the province, where we are going to be relying on the stories that come out of the program to share with a wider number of farmers and have that increased adoption rate. Working in partnership is really critical, and it's what makes that iterative co-development procedure really reliant on engaged partners. And of course, the core principle of the real life context being these are all conducted on working farms where, as we know, anything can happen. But these all come down to, and it's been said, I'm very grateful that I'm not introducing a new concept here. This all comes down to trust. The users have to feel like this centering of the voices. It's not just lip service. They're really engaged, and then the implementation of their advice and experience and feedback is really critical to maintaining and building that trust. The trust has to come from the partners as well. And again, knowing that in a real life context, anything can and will go sideways very quickly. You do have to have trust in those partners who are going to be responsive to the circumstances, meeting them at that site. Okay. And that's what it all comes down to. And again, I'm not introducing a new concept. It's been mentioned already this morning, but between the trust and the relationships and the people that are engaged in these opportunities, that's most ultimately what gets research into practice. So we want to establish trust in a known entity. That's where we're really benefit soil and crop as an organization, but the farmer cooperators and the program as a whole really benefit from that complex consortium of partners. Because if a farmer has never heard of Ontario Soil and Crop Improvement Association before, but they've been invited into the program through Dairy Farmers of Ontario or Ontario Sheep Farmers, and so they're kind of still having this inroads through a trusted entity. That's really important for their stepping stone into the program. Trust is also built iteratively. So when we go back to that co-development cycle and that innovation cycle, do they understand that their voices and their feedback are actually being respected and implemented? And then when it comes around again to that next phase of co-development, they're able to candidly and openly share again because they know it will have a meaningful impact. And finally, it takes time. It takes a lot of time to build trust. And where soil and crop has benefited from being a key player among farmer members since 1939. Trust can also be broken a lot faster than that. So really maintaining those first few points. And understanding that especially when you're new to a scene or the farmer cooperators are new, it doesn't happen overnight. And then finally, we trust from the researchers in the priorities of the program. So we work both with researchers from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, but also industry and the University of Guelph and the University of British Columbia. And we understand, and the programming partners understand that researchers have different priorities, different timelines that they operate on, and they're spread very thin, in terms of their capacity to really, I find especially academic researchers expected to be everything to everyone. They're mentors to their grad students, they're teachers to their undergrad classes, and now they're increasingly expected to produce great KTT. So as much as we can help them, understand that we respect their priorities as much as they understand and respect the priorities of the project is really important. We also benefit from a lot of trust from our partners in the process. A lot of the people around the table are new to participating in research, are new to working with soil and crop. So as much as we keep those channels of dialogue open and honest and collaborative, it builds that trust among all the partners in the process. And finally, we hope that farmers have trust in the outcomes of the program and the means to the end. They are building relationships with these researchers, they're building relationships with new partners. And of course, that all comes back to the time it'll take. I think this is my last slide, but really just want to drive home again, the power of the team we've built here, and increasingly it's also a new sphere, admittedly, for soil and crop to be working so intricately with the livestock sector and a lot of new partners on around the table here. So found it very gratifying, and I'm happy to be here this morning to share with you. Thanks.
Questions for Angie?
Thanks for the presentation. Introduce myself, Martin Jackal. I'm the Canadian Center for Soil Improvement. So one question I had, you mentioned the industry and the problems that they might have. You mentioned the researchers, and then they focus or they use their expertise to solve that problem. But one other side of your story is always, if a researcher has expertise in certain program that can solve a problem that exists, we usually need funding from the government for that specific problem. Your organization or your industry, does it have any influence what kind of funding and what priority from the government is is available, because, yeah, we know what's the problem and we have the researchers, there's no money, or there's not enough money to solve this problem.
Show of hands who is from the government, I'll just, okay. It's, yeah, that's a wicked problem. I think, so, another, maybe for those of you who aren't familiar with soil and crop either, like, we're very decidedly a non-lobby organization. So where we're delivering these programs and facilitating these programs, we're able to, relay the results and the outcomes of those back to the government funders who are supporting the program. They may use that data to influence policy or influence a future funding framework, but we deliver it neutrally, so to speak. So I think, and again, this is me, speaking a little off the cuff, but I do think that's where a lot of soil and crops credibility in the landscape is built. Because we recognize the priority of the government. We try to meet farmers where they're at with those priorities coming through the funding that we do deliver, and kind of take that middle road. But we don't lobby or petition for the funding priorities to change at the government level. Now, where the research outcomes, can be used to inform policy, and where the outcomes of our, programming uptake and demands for future programming, we can relay those to the government bodies that do make those decisions. In that way, is there some influence for where future funding frameworks can divert resources? Maybe. I'm not sure I've answered your question, but it's, yeah, it can be a tricky line to toe.
Good questions?
Hi, Jala. It's a very fascinating presentation. I just, it's out of curiosity question. Like probably about farmer field school approach that has been promoted globally by World Bank and United Nations, and also innovation platform. So is there a living lab approach that you're using here? Is it like different, or you are some similarities?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's, the approach certainly draws from a lot of models. It was designed at the federal level, so and Canada was undoubtedly looking to other national and international initiatives where success could be drawn from, and where there might have been some lessons learned. We saw the parallels in the provincial funding frameworks that we deliver in the on-farm applied research and monitoring program that we've been supporting for several years with funding from previously Canadian Agricultural Partnership and now Sustainable CAP. Yeah, they haven't necessarily reinvented a wheel here, but they've optimized the wheel and they're trying something new with it. And I think that's where, we have the ability, and even where co-development as a concept has the ability, is to even still, as the program progresses, learn from those international initiatives and say, where can we be kind of tweaking this process as it progresses.
Okay, thanks so much, Angie.
Thanks, Dan.